Halloween's over with, isn't it? Oh well, what do I do now? Guess I'll go back to talking about comic books. Hello everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, and welcome to another episode of Comic Class. But this isn't just any episode of Comic Class. This is a big one for us because this is the epic finale of our Rebirth in review. Yes, for the past 4 months, I've been looking at every single book that has been coming out from DC Rebirth and giving you my thoughts and opinions on them. And overall, my opinion of DC Rebirth could not be higher. But you guys know that. You've watched all the episodes. If you have not watched them all, there'll be a little tiny button thing popping up somewhere around here. I still don't know what side that pops up on. I'm bad at YouTube. But this is it. This is the final episode of us discussing Rebirth. Now, I'm not going to go into a summary of how I feel about every single one of the DC Rebirth books that have come out because, in all honesty, you've heard that before. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over those last remaining few books that still haven't had many issues come out, and I was kinda not sure on how I felt about it just yet. So today I'm going to tell you my final opinion on those, as well as lay out for you what I think are the best books from all of Rebirth. And if not the best, at least the books that deserve to be talked about the most. Enjoy.
Alright, now as I said, I'm going to start with those few books that I'm still forming an opinion on. Almost every single book from Rebirth, I at this point have pretty much solidified my opinion on. So if you want to know how I feel about each of these books, you can go back to previous episodes and listen to how I felt about them then. And I gotta say, that's one of the amazing things about Rebirth. Unlike with the New 52, where I read all these books and I went, oh wow, this is something really new and fresh and really creative. And then a few months later, I was like, oh, this is not what I thought it was at all. And I started dropping books left and right. With DC Rebirth, yeah, I still pretty much feel the same way that I did when these books started. Some of them have gotten better, some of them have gotten worse, but for the most part, how I felt about these books when I started reading them is how I still feel about them. And that's amazing that each of these books were able to sell to the audience right off the bat exactly what the book was going to be. I think it speaks very highly to how much more thought out DC Rebirth was than the New 52, but I'm not here today to just poo-poo all over the New 52. The New 52 is long gone, and Rebirth is here, and long live it. So, before I go into what I think were the best books from DC Rebirth, and the ones that I love and recommend to everyone the most, I'm just going to cover those last few books that I was still trying to form an opinion on. We're still going back and forth on. We're going to start off with a bit of bad news, and I have to say, Cyborg is one of the series that I am unfortunately going to have to drop. If you guys have been watching my Rebirth in review videos, you know I am a big fan of Cyborg and I keep wanting him to have a series that works, but I was nervous when the writer of the series got announced because he was a guy who had written some stuff for the 1990s Spider-Man cartoon, and that was about it. And when I heard that, I thought, I don't know if that's the guy you should be picking to write a current age comic. And in the most recent issue, that was kind of confirmed to me because I mentioned that many people who used to write back a few decades ago and haven't really done anything since then, they have a problem with updating the way that they write characters. And in the most recent issue, Cyborg was having these nightmares that made him think that he was fighting other heroes or that people were turning against him and trying to lock him up. And there came a moment in which he was trying to break out of these restraints, and he yelled out, "You should know that such puny restraints could never contain me." And when I read that, I was like, no one talks like that. That is the way that characters back in 1960s and 1970s comic books used to talk. No one would say something like that. And there's dialogue like that all throughout this series. So yeah, my hopes of Cyborg eventually getting a series that works, I'm still gonna have to keep on hoping. He's one of the main characters in the Justice League, so I know that even if this series does end up failing, eventually they'll give him another series and another series after that, and eventually one of them will work. And when it does work, I will be there to read it, and I will be very excited about it. But for the time being, this current series just ain't doing it. However, moving into more positive news, with Green Arrow, I said I was loving that book when it first came out. I thought that it was an amazing take on that character. I thought that they grasped both Ollie and Dinah both perfectly. However, I said that as the series went along, I thought it had some pacing problems, and the mini-story arc that was all about Ollie's sister I thought was interesting, but it wasn't hitting those heights as before. So I started to worry that this book was going to drop from great to just okay. But the start of the newest storyline, which has Ollie and Dinah and pretty much everybody else who was on that ship that exploded in the previous storyline, now trapped on a deserted island, but the deserted island has a secret to it. I think that, again, the book is on point. I think that that book is, once again, on the right course. And it made me realize this really is a book that's all about Green Arrow and Black Canary. Seeing those two together, seeing them just so head over heels in love with each other, seeing their witty banter back and forth, that is what makes this book for me. So the moment that the two of them hooked back up again, and we actually got to see them working side by side again, I went, that is the best thing about this book. So as long as the book can keep giving me that, I think it will continue to be great. Now, as for two of the series that premiered last month, but they just had Rebirth issues, so I still didn't quite know what the series was going to be like. Batman Beyond, I said that the Rebirth issue was great for Batman Beyond fans because they came in and they completely ignored the mess that was the New 52 version of Batman Beyond, and it came in and just went, here's the stuff from the cartoon. This is the stuff that you liked. We're going to play around in this world that you're familiar with. We're going to try and capture the tones and the type of stories that you would see in that old cartoon that you grew up with loving. And now the first issue has come out, and I gotta admit, not that big on the dialogue. I think the dialogue does need some help, but I am really enjoying this whole idea that the street gang of the Jokers has now taken over an entire part of town. I really enjoy this idea that because Terry was out of commission for multiple months, he's kind of rusty, he's not fully back into the game just yet. It's not blowing me away, and I kind of want it to be blowing me away, but I am enjoying it enough to keep reading it, so at the time being, not one of my favorite books from Rebirth, but as a Batman Beyond fan, I am going to continue reading it because it is satisfying me, at least on that nostalgic level. And lastly, Teen Titans. Now, I know a lot of people were blown away by the first issue. They said that the first issue was great. I thought the first issue was just okay because the first issue did nothing but just introduce us to each of these characters. Which, hey, that is the whole point of the Rebirth one-shots. The Rebirth one-shots are there to come in and go, hey, do you not know these characters? Here are these characters. I think it did that just fine, but I wanted to see where the story actually went. I wanted to see this team actually together before I actually made up my mind on how I felt about this book. And in issue 1, we do see Damian coming in here and saying, okay, here's the reason why I got you guys together. And we actually see the team working together, and I think it is absolutely on point. This is the Teen Titans book that we have been missing. First off, I just gotta talk about Damian, because if you've watched the channel for a while, you know I kinda have a problem with Damian Wayne. Not with the idea of his character, the idea that Batman has a son out there and he was raised by the League of Assassins, that's great. However, he is such a pompous jerk, and I know so many other people see him being such an arrogant little and they look at that and go, oh, what a precious little cinnamon roll who I must protect. I look at that and go, you are a child acting like a total piece of crap. Someone needs to send you to your room. Granted, maybe that just means I'm getting too old and it's a problem on my end. But yeah, I think that so many people write Damian just being completely arrogant and also just being too darn good. I have also always had a problem with the fact that Damian Wayne is just beyond Batman at points with how skilled of a fighter he is, with how good of a detective he is, with how smart he is, with how much he knows about everything. There are just points in which you're like, this guy is just too freaking perfect. You need to tone him down. And in this one issue, I think they nailed Damian perfectly. They toned down all that stuff I have a problem with, while at the same time still putting it in there, but not to the point in which he's some OP character who just is unstoppable. There's a moment in this issue in which the Teen Titans break out of the restraints that Damian put them in, and yeah, it's not like he's going to win this fight. It's not like Damian then went in there and stopped Starfire with Kung Fu. He basically just goes, yeah, okay, you got me. Yeah, I can't win this one. He just goes, okay, you all broke free? Good. That's exactly what I wanted you to do. He is not there to fight them and show them how he is better than all of them. He just comes in and goes, yeah, okay, I brought you all here because I want to prove to you how good you work as a team. That's acceptable. It is okay for you to come in here and be a total badass if in the end you admit, no, we're better as a team. We're all better together. So there they came in and kind of resolved the whole Damian is too OP problem that I've always had. But when it comes to his personality, I was reading this issue and I was like, I don't know. It's still kind of being the Damian that I don't like. But then you see him at his birthday party interacting with Alfred and just seeing how much they care about each other. And you can tell that they have this back and forth and they really are important to one another, and that Damian has a soft spot for Alfred and Alfred has a soft spot for him. I was like, there, you're showing me that this guy is three-dimensional. He can form bonds with people. He does care. But the most important moment to me is when Beast Boy tells Damian, why don't you go and form a team with your own friends? And then Damian just has to pause and go, I don't have any friends. I was like, that's it. That's what I need to see. I need to see that Damian is human. I need to see that Damian is not just some fighting robot that just goes out there and kicks ass nonstop and that's all that he wants. I needed to see that Damian, he's a kid. He's a kid who wants friends. And he doesn't really have any because he was trained to fight nonstop. I love seeing that Damian wants to be more human. He doesn't reject emotions. He doesn't reject feelings. He is someone who really does care about other people, and he wants to care about other people, and he wants other people to care about him. So I think they absolutely nailed Damian in this issue, but also the Teen Titans are only really together for a couple of seconds. You only really see them for a few panels actually fighting together, but in those few panels I went, that's the Teen Titans. Seeing the fun witty banter between them, seeing all this crazy action, which is in no small part thanks to the artwork by John Boy Mayers, who did a great job on this issue, but sadly he will be leaving the book soon. That is a guy who has not really worked on a lot of titles in the past couple of years, and now he's leaving the book over creative differences, and it actually has me wondering, why haven't you been working over the past couple of years? Why haven't you done more stuff? But that's a whole discussion for another day. Anyway, he did a great job on this issue, really capturing that sense of fun that you should get when the Teen Titans go into battle. And at the end of the issue, you see Ra's al Ghul planning his own team of teenage supervillains to go up against the Teen Titans. I was like, this is exactly something that you would have found in that old Teen Titans cartoon that was around when I was growing up. This is exactly what I want out of a Teen Titans comic. This is a perfect first issue for the Teen Titans. But also, I've been saying that one of the purposes of Rebirth is to come in and to apologize for the New 52 doing such a bad job of portraying the DC universe. And I have been saying this whole time, the Teen Titans is one of those things that they needed to get right the most, because they had 2 series during the New 52, and the first one was just not even close. Their first series was a complete misstep. And the second series was better, but it just felt like someone trying too hard. It felt like someone going, well, Young Avengers was successful, let's try and be like that. And it's like, the Teen Titans are not the Young Avengers. The Young Avengers are the Young Avengers, and the Teen Titans are the Teen Titans. Let the Teen Titans be the Teen Titans. And there is a moment in this issue in which Damian says, listen, I had my differences with Tim Drake, but I still really respected him. However, his Teen Titans were not what the Teen Titans should be. They were a joke. They were not a team of young superheroes. And the moment that he was saying that, all I could think was, this isn't even Damian talking at this point. This is Jeff Johns walking up to Dan DiDio and Jim Lee and making this speech to them. This is Jeff Johns coming in here and going, no, we gotta fix this whole universe, and let me tell you what is wrong with these people. The Teen Titans, here's what's wrong with them. I mean, for God's sakes, the speech that Damian made in here was almost word for word the speech that I made when I was first talking about the Teen Titans Rebirth issue and what the problems with the New 52 Teen Titans were. This book nails every single thing that it should have been. It was stunning to me to see this book actually come in here and come as close to an apology as you could possibly have gotten for the previous Teen Titans series. But alright, I think I have now spent what will end up being the majority of this one episode talking solely about the Teen Titans. But those were all the books that still I was kind of like going back and forth on, but now I feel like I have fully cemented my opinions on them. So now I'm just going to close out our discussion of DC Rebirth by talking about the 6 books that to me are the most notable. They're the ones that I'm not going to say they're the best, although some of them certainly are the best, but they're the ones that I have to applaud the most. And the first one that I have to go with is Red Hood and the Outlaws. Now, don't get me wrong, I would not put this in the top 6 DC Rebirth titles. However, I came in here when this book was announced and talked so much crap about it. I said Scott Lobdell has done a terrible job writing the Red Hood. I hated the previous Red Hood and the Outlaw series and his previous Red Hood and Arsenal series. I was not looking forward to this at all. So I am going to talk about today just simply so that I can once and for all come in here and say, I apologize. I am very sorry to Scott Lobdell for just assuming that this next series would not be good. Don't get me wrong. My problems with the previous Red Hood series and with his Teen Titans series, while I'm still kind of on the subject, those complaints still stand. However, I look at this Red Hood and the Outlaw series and I go, this guy has fixed what was wrong. The Red Hood is being portrayed incredibly well in this series. I love this idea that he is now a criminal, but he's a criminal undercover. He's someone who wants to do right, but he is just so damaged and so broken that he is forcing himself to go into situations that he really shouldn't. But at the same time, he has a valid argument for why some hero has to be the one that goes into that situation. And watching him slowly form this team of Artemis and Bizarro, it's coming together so well. So yes, as the number one surprise of DC Rebirth, I have to spotlight Red Hood and the Outlaws and just say, no other book out there surpassed my expectations more than this one did. Alright, moving into the next series, Green Lanterns. I have talked about this series on almost every single episode of Rebirth in Review that I have done, and I've said the same thing over and over again, which is that it has a few pacing problems, I'll admit that, and the dialogue can be a little bit inconsistent, but these characters, Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz, are the breakout stars of Rebirth. I think that Sam Humphries is capturing the voice of both these characters incredibly well, and that's a really impressive thing considering the fact that we haven't seen much of either of these two characters. Both of them are very new characters who Sam Humphries is being tasked with capturing the voice of what we've already seen, but building upon it, and that to me is one of the best things about this book. It's that so many other people, ever since Jeff Johns left Green Lantern, have come in and gone, okay, well, I'm going to play around within what he built. I'm going to try and figure out how to add new stuff inside of what he built. And Sam Humphries came in and said, no, I'm going to add stuff onto what he built. So many other writers have come in here and invented new stuff for the Green Lantern mythos, but it's stuff that they went, okay, well, what can I do that's kind of like was always hidden there? What's like a thing that I can come in and go, okay, well, I guess Jeff Johns didn't really talk about this, so I can still cover that. Sam Humphries is coming in and going, no, Jeff Johns covered everything that he needs to cover. Time to keep adding layers onto that. This whole new mythos of Red Dawn for the Red Lanterns, I really want to see what ends up becoming of that. And this whole idea that one of the Guardians invented a brand new ring, a ring that anyone can wield, that is a great new step for the direction of the Green Lantern mythos. And when they introduced the guy who's going to wield that ring, I don't want to really spoil what he is or what his motivations are, but he is the perfect guy to go up against a Green Lantern. Not up against Simon Baz or Jessica Cruz. No, any Green Lantern. When you hear the origin story of this new villain who's going to end up wielding the ring that anyone can wield, it makes you look at it and go, how has no one invented this villain before? He is the perfect guy to go up against a Green Lantern. And again, just going back to the characters, anytime that Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz are just talking with each other and letting their relationship develop, it is amazing to watch the chemistry between them. These are two very different characters, but you see them coming in and actually helping each other in different ways, both as lanterns and in their personal lives. The Halloween episode, where it's just them in the kitchen trying to prepare Halloween dinner for Simon Baz's family, was one of the best issues of this whole series. So yeah, I had to spotlight Green Lanterns because not only are the characters so much fun, but also someone on Tumblr recently asked me, hey, I just got done reading all the Jeff Johns Green Lantern books. What would you suggest I read for Green Lanterns after that? And that was a difficult question to answer because Jeff Johns hands down had the best run on Green Lantern. And as I said, nobody has really come close to creating that mythos in the same way that he did for the Green Lanterns. But as I read Sam Humphries' Green Lanterns, that's the closest I've seen to anyone coming in here and going, no, I'm going to try and be as good as him. Next up, Flash. I am going to pretty much just repeat everything that I have already said about the Flash, but since this is the last time that I am really going to get a chance to geek out about these books, I just have to do it one more time for this book because I did not expect Joshua Williamson, a guy who is known for writing dark fantasy and serial killer books, to come in and just capture this character who is meant to be a voice of hope in the DC universe so darn well. Just like what Sam Humphries is doing for Green Lanterns, Joshua Williamson is looking at the Speed Force and going, alright, what's some stuff I can experiment with in this? This whole idea of a Speed Force storm that turned tons of people into speedsters was a great new idea. Again, it's one of those ideas that you look at and go, how has no one written this storyline yet for The Flash? And I loved all the new speedsters that they introduced. I love how he was able to take these new speedsters and things that end up happening to them and tie them back to things in The Flash's history. And in the end, this whole storyline ended up becoming an origin story for the new Kid Flash, and I think it was actually a really solid origin story. I love that we see Wally go through a training montage in which he starts learning how to use his powers. I love that we got to see him forming connections to these other speedsters. I love that we saw that he got a reason to go out there and fight and become Kid Flash, and then seeing him work side by side with his idol, with this hero who he loves so much. That is what the Kid Flash is all about. It's about someone who really loves this legacy of the Flash, who looks up to other heroes and wants to become one, and that joy that you get of actually going out there and running side by side with that hero you care about so much. And also, the Flash is known for having great villains, and when I heard that the villain was going to be some guy named Godspeed and he was just going to be an evil speedster, I was like, man, we have enough evil speedsters. Give us something new already. But we have never had an evil speedster with quite this motivation before, or with quite this twist to him. I really dug what they did with Godspeed. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for anybody who has not read it, but in all honesty, I called that it was going to be this by the third issue, but it turns out that Barry Allen's partner on the force is someone whose brother was murdered a long time ago, his killer was never caught, and he has always wanted revenge for that. So when he gets the Speed Force powers, he just decides, I'm going to turn into the Punisher of speedsters. We've seen evil speedsters going out there, but we've never seen an evil speedster who really believes, no, I am on the right side of the law. I am the superhero that this city needs. So I do think that that was an interesting take on him. Plus, as I said, even though I called it was going to be this guy by the third issue, when it finally got to that moment in which he came out and revealed that it was him, that he was Godspeed, it was a chilling moment. And when you see what he actually does with the Speed Force and how Barry can't even keep up with him, it was actually disturbing. I mean, I know Halloween is over with, so I shouldn't be talking about spooky comics anymore, but when I read the way that Joshua Williamson was writing Godspeed, it reminded me, oh, that's why you hired the guy who writes serial killer books. It's because Barry Allen works as a crime scene investigator, so you can do some stuff with that, but also because you knew he would be the right guy to write this villain, and indeed he was. So yeah, Flash has been blowing my mind with how good it is. Flash is another character, kind of like the Teen Titans, in which, listen, even when his books were good in the New 52, they were just alright. And The Flash should not be alright. The Flash should be amazing. The Flash should be one of DC's top books, and for the first time in a very long time, it is one of their top books. Alright, we are now down to what I think are the 3 best books from all of Rebirth. And it brings me so much joy to be able to say that I think the 3 best books that DC is currently putting out are Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. I want everybody to just stop for a second and just think about that. Think about the fact that this is the Trinity. This is the group of heroes that DC bases its entire universe around. They're the 3 heroes who you always see standing there front and center whenever you think of DC Comics. And yet, when have you ever in your entire comic book reading lifespan, no matter how old you are, think back throughout your entire history of reading DC, when have you ever been able to say they also have the 3 best books that DC is putting out? The entire point of DC Rebirth was to recapture what made DC DC. And when you think about the 3 heroes who make DC what it is, it's Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. So the mere fact that Rebirth actually was able to come in and make them the 3 best books that they have, that is a stunning accomplishment to me. And these are complex characters. These are characters with many different sides to them. And yet I think that each of these books are able to capture those different sides perfectly. Like, look at Wonder Woman, for example. In Wonder Woman, every single issue jumps back and forth between 2 different storylines. One in the present and one in the past. The present storyline shows the Diana that a lot of people know today. The one who is a warrior, the one who is tough, the one who will stand up and is fearless and goes out there and just challenges the biggest threats possible, but at the same time being a very empowering symbol for women, being a very strong feminist message. In the present storyline, it's capturing all that perfectly. However, there's another side to Wonder Woman. The Wonder Woman who is all about love, who is all about hope, the one who is all about peace. And in the storyline that takes place in the past, we see her younger, we see her bright-eyed, we see her wanting to go out into man's world and help protect them, because even though she has never even met these people before and didn't even know that they existed until a few days ago, she wants to go out there and help them. And when you ask me, when I think of Wonder Woman, what's the character that I imagine, it's both these interpretations together. So the fact that they actually came up with 2 storylines that could capture those sides of Wonder Woman at the same time every single month, that was a brilliant idea to me. And let's look over at Batman for a second. Now, when I say that Batman is one of their best books, I'll admit, I'm including both Tom King's actual Batman series and James Tynion's Detective Comics series. Now, when it comes to Batman, so many people out there say that Scott Snyder's Batman was perfect. It was the best thing about Batman that they have read in the longest time. And like I've been saying, these are complex characters. These are characters who have many different sides to them. And I will fully admit, even though I was not the biggest fan of Scott Snyder's Batman run, I didn't love it quite like everyone else did, I fully admit it did capture a side to Batman. It did capture one of those faces of Batman that so many people love. However, that was pretty much the only side to Batman that we were getting. And you can't just have one side to these characters. But I really feel that in both of these series, they have done a wonderful job of capturing everything that I personally loved about Batman. Over in Detective Comics, you have the Bat family. You have Bruce Wayne actually trusting other people. You have him going up to Clayface, for crying out loud, and going, "I believe you can be redeemed." That is something that I have wanted to see in Batman for the longest time, because Bruce Wayne is not a guy who just goes out there and punches criminals every single night. He's someone who goes out there and actually tries to protect this city. He is someone who goes out there and tries to keep what happened to him from happening to other people, and he fully realizes that also includes keeping people from going through the mental damage and suffering that he had to endure. He is someone who realizes, listen, if I can protect people who have had terrible things happen to them, if I can find people who are going through the same kind of suffering that I had to experience and keep them from going down a darker path, then I am absolutely going to do that. So him actually reaching out to Clayface and giving him a chance for redemption, that's a side to Batman that I did not see in the New 52, and I needed to see it. And actually seeing him care about these other characters, care about the Bat family, care about Tim Drake, care about Batwoman, that, again, was the side to Batman that I did not see in the New 52. In the New 52, he was just ass-kicking non-stop. In fact, he was a brutal loner during most of the New 52. I mean, heck, in the New 52, they had a storyline in which they destroyed the Bat family. So seeing this character actually bring together a brand new group of heroes to come together and go, we are the team that is going to protect Gotham, and seeing him actually form bonds with them, actually care about them, actually trust them, that, again, is the Batman that I needed to see. However, if you do want to see more of that just ass-kicking Batman, go over to Tom King's Batman. In the most recent issue of that, in which he has to go to Arkham and build his own Suicide Squad, That to me captured the horror aspect of Batman. That to me captured the tough and rugged side of Batman. That to me captured the detective side to Batman. Seeing him actually go in there and determine, okay, who do I need for this special task force? Who is actually here in this asylum that they don't want me to know about? That was one of the most Batman issues I've read in a long time. But at the same time, throughout this series, we have seen the Batman who cares. When we actually saw him go up to Gotham Girl, who had been damaged by the Psycho Pirate and had her mind tampered with, and seeing how he actually got her to come to him, not through force, but by coming in and just speaking to her like a person, speaking to her like someone else who had experienced something just like her until she was willing to come into his arms and say, all right, I need help. That was the Batman that I needed to see. So between these two books, they have done a marvelous job of capturing what makes Batman the character that so many people love. And now, going into the last one, I have to finish this off by talking about the book that has impressed me the most. Peter J. Tomasi's Superman. Superman, like so many other characters that I've talked about in this episode, was one of those characters who really need a shot at redemption in Rebirth. Not saying that all of the depictions of the New 52 Superman were bad. There are moments here and there that I can stop and point to and go, alright, that was a pretty good Superman moment. However, just talking about Superman in general, just looking at the concept that so many people have of him and the way that he has been depicted in the media over the past couple of years in an attempt to make him cool again, that is not Superman. And this idea that so many people have that Superman has to be damaged, he has to be angry, he has to be someone who is disturbed, somebody who went through great suffering, and that is something that he is constantly trying to deal with and trying to overcome, and that is a major part of his character, and he constantly has to struggle with the fact that he has the weight of the world in his fingertips at all time, and it's just too much for any one hero to bear. The idea that that is an accurate depiction of Superman is something that needs to change. That is something that needed to be fixed. We needed that series that would come in here and go, no, this is Superman, and we're going to show you why that's cool. We're going to show you why that works. We're going to show you why that is the Superman that you want to read about. The fact that we actually got that series makes me love Rebirth more than any other comic book relaunch I've ever read. When it comes to Superman and everybody's saying, oh, you can't write a good Superman story. Superman is just too boring. He's just too flat of a character. He's too OP. He's too powerful. He can never actually go up against anything that can hurt him. Whenever I hear people making those arguments, I have always had one simple response. Write better. I said this on the last episode. I'm going to say it again in this episode and will continue to say it until my dying breath. If you can't think of a good Superman story, it's not the character's fault that you can't write him. If you think Superman is too powerful that the only one who can stop him is a giant spiky monster, I present to you Peter J. Tomasi's Superman series, in which he fought a Kryptonian robot that was powered by the souls of everyone on that planet, and the two of them had a knockdown, drag-out fight on the moon that caused the entire planet to quake. That is a villain that Superman can fight. And if you think that Superman is boring because he's always upstanding and right and he's always got the correct thing to say and he believes in truth and justice and hope and freedom, again, look at Peter J. Tomasi's Superman. He realized that the best way to get people to accept this Superman, to get them to look at that image of Superman and go, okay, now I understand it, is they made him a dad. They gave him a son, and we got to see Superman through his son's point of view. And in that, he captured all the complex feelings that would come along with that idea of looking at your father and going, wow, he is just that great. He is that perfect. How am I going to possibly live up to that? But at the same time, capturing that feeling of, this is so cool that my dad is that great. They didn't have to break down Superman's character in order to make him relatable to the common reader. I've always said Superman should not be relatable to the common reader. Superman should be that character who the common reader looks at and goes, I want to be that. I want to be as good as this guy is. So giving us a character like Superman's son who looks at his father and says those exact words put us in the son's shoes and made us look at Superman the way that we always should look at Superman. But even when Superman isn't around his son, even when it is just him, they still capture that voice of Superman in the way that I have always wanted to see him captured. As I said in the last episode, there is that great moment in which the Eradicator, this robot from Krypton, is mocking Superman saying, "You will always be alone. You will never be able to relate to them. You will never be able to connect to them," which is the argument that so many people have for why Superman should be grim and dark, and he should not be this bright, shining character of hope, and he should be someone who is constantly dealing with who he is. And then Superman just beats him down and says, "I've never been alone." You know why? Because Superman hasn't been alone. He hasn't been disconnected from humanity. Superman is as human as you or I am, because what makes someone human isn't their strength, it isn't their speed, it isn't heat vision and their ability to fly. What makes someone human is the person that they are inside. It's the connections that they make to other people, and that is who Superman has always been. He's always been the most human one among us. He has always been what the rest of humanity should look to and aspire to be. So for creating the series that finally got Superman right, I cannot stop applauding Peter J. Tomasi's Superman. And I can't stop applauding all of Rebirth for finally giving us this chance to read this version of Superman and this version of so many other characters. In the end, taking one final look back at DC Rebirth, the number of failures from this can be counted on one hand, and the number of successes, where DC really needed successes, is unfathomable. It is impossible for me to put into words what an amazing turnaround all of Rebirth has been, so instead, I will simply sum up my feelings towards Rebirth to say, welcome back, DC. We missed you. I want to thank every single one of you who has joined me throughout all of these Rebirth in Review episodes. And if you want to see more comic book news and reviews from me, then don't worry, because every single Wednesday we're going to have more episodes of Comic Class. That will not stop just because DC Rebirth has. In fact, even me taking a look at all the new number ones from a line-wide relaunch will not end, because Marvel Now is just getting started. So, starting next week, I'm going to come in here and give you my breakdown of each of the new number one issues of Marvel Now, because the comic book industry never wants you to go a single week without at least a couple of brand new number ones coming out. So if you want to see those, then make sure that you stay tuned, click that subscribe button, and share these videos all around the web. Doing that and giving us a thumb up down below is the best way to help out this channel. And remember, if you want to know more from me, then you can always follow me on Twitter and Tumblr at Professor Thorgy. But for now, I'm just going to say thanks again for tuning in, everyone. It meant so much for me to share this journey with all of you. So I'll just say one last time, thank you all for joining us. Come back next time.